It's great to see everyone. It's really nice to be here, and I want to thank the Brand Innovators group for the opportunity, and also for New Balance and Clark's for hosting this. For Chris and the New Balance team, I mean, this facility is just unbelievable. I think we're all in awe just having a chance to walk around it and check it out. So it's really cool that we're here today. So before we begin the Fireside chat part of this, I thought it'd be helpful just to give a little bit of background on the L.L.Bean brand, who we are, what we're about. Hopefully people have some familiarity with our brand and our name, but maybe a little less so with our history and our past. And you know, I've had a chance to connect with Chris and Tara and hear the New Balance and Clark stories before, but I was just struck in the presentation this morning. I think you'll hear a lot of points of similarity. One of the things I'm realizing is we actually feel like kind of a young brand. I think we're 6 years younger than New Balance, maybe 80 years younger than Clark's, 60 years younger than Campbell's that we just heard about, but certainly we have a rich history. In our case, our story begins in 1912 with our founder, Llb Bean, who was an avid outdoorsman and decided to pursue an idea of designing a hunting shoe to keep his feet dry, to keep them comfortable, and realized it would be a good opportunity in the market as well. So in his first year, he actually developed 100 pairs, sold them all, and stood behind them with a 100% guarantee. And as the story goes, 90 of those 100 pairs came back as they were defective. So he stood by his word, he gave the money back, he went back to the drawing board, redesigned them, and the rest is history. And that main hunting shoe today is still very much an iconic product in our line. You might know it more as our bean boot. And so another similarity, we were a footwear first company like New Balance, like Clark's, but pretty quickly moved beyond that. And one of the things that defines us is we have a fairly diverse product line. It goes from casual and active apparel, footwear, outerwear, outdoor equipment, home goods, kids, travel. So quite a bit of diversity in terms of what we are selling. A little bit more details about the company. We are still family owned. Our largest channel from a channel perspective is e-com, but we do operate more than 50 stores across 19 states in the US. We have a fully owned business in Japan with another 25 stores. And then in the past few years, we've started to expand north of the border with the help of a partner and have opened up close to 10 stores in Canada and seeing good success there. I think one of the things that we've really focused on is keeping our core values central to who we are, really remaining focused on the outdoors. But I'd also say with the history we have as a brand, also the diversity and breadth of our product line, it's really, really easy to get distracted. And the other thing is the outdoor lifestyle market is pretty crowded, and especially in the past 20 years or so, we've seen a lot of brands kind of lean into the space. So in 2016, we embarked on a pretty significant brand project, really to make sure we were refining our positioning, finding our key points of clarity, and also differentiation and where we really wanted to sit in the market. And it was a great project, and I think what differentiated it from other brand projects we had done is that we went into it with the main intent of taking action on what we developed. And that sounds simple, but I think we've probably all been through brand projects where you do the work, you find your target customer, your points of differentiation, you kind of put it up on a shelf and forget about it. And so, I'm proud that we did take action on it. It's still something that we're acting on today. There's some great outputs that came out of the project. This was a brand manifesto, really designed for internal use and really to have as a rallying cry for our employees and understand how we wanted to show up as a brand. And I won't read all of it, but I think the last 5 lines help to really define it, which is, it doesn't matter where you come from, only that you come often, so wherever you are, join us. Because on the inside, we're all outsiders, and if it's outside, we're all in. So, when we heard this as employees, we really were energized and realizing we had a great place in the market. Be an outsider also came out of that brand project, and as a message we still keep very true to our marketing today. This is a mood board that came out of the brand project, really highlighting our personality. And hopefully a few things that pop out on the page are, one, people-centric, also just really enabling these shared experiences, a high level of joy, happiness. Authenticity is very, very important to us as a brand. And also approachability. We want people and are encouraging people to get outside, but we don't need them kind of solo conquering a snow-capped peak in extreme conditions. It can be going for a walk, hanging out in your backyard. They still need to be comfortable. They still need to be dry, and we can help them. And that plays into our positioning statement as well, as made for the shared joy of the outdoors. And we're really focused on designing purposeful products to really help people get outside, to share those experiences together, and also to have a sense of belonging in the outdoors. And for us, that's really important. We think there's a big opportunity for the outdoors to be much more inclusive than exclusive. So, I think we've had some great success in taking action on this. Right before the pandemic, we were starting to realize, we needed to be a little clearer on why we were telling people to get outside and be outsiders. And so we embarked on answering that question and came up with a more defined purpose statement, which is to inspire and enable people to experience the restorative power of being outside. And we kind of developed this right before the pandemic without knowing how relevant this was going to be for all of us. I think we probably all experienced the outdoors in a new way, and we think it's something critically important for people to consider and keep in mind. The other thing that was really important to us is that this is based on our roots and who we are as a brand and who we've been as a brand for over 100 years. And it was the main intent of L.L. when he founded the company in 1912, and also of his grandson, Leon Gorman, who ran the company from 1967 to 2001, and is really credited in taking the company to where it is today. So we've got great momentum in our brand, but keeping that focus, that clarity, it's an ongoing effort, and we also think it's critical to our success. So we really need to lean into amplifying our story and getting it out there, and so we see it as a big part of our corporate strategy. And when you think about our, amplifying a brand, amplifying a purpose, it goes across everything we're doing. It's in our product development, it's in our company culture, and it's obviously in our marketing. Two places we're focused on in marketing are partnerships, which we heard a lot about already today. And the second is just developing really scalable, inspirational brand expressions. On the partnership front, we've developed some great partnerships over the past few years and continue to do that. And we're doing that in a way to really make sure that we're helping to get our message out there, to gain reach, to gain scale, but always connected to our purpose. One recent example we're really proud of is this recent challenge we set up with Strava. And we use their app to incent people to spend 15 minutes of time outside every day. And if they did that for 3 weeks, then they received a reward from us. We saw over 200,000 people participate, the vast majority completing the challenge. And I think what's remarkable on Strava, you can track 30 plus different activities. More than 20% of the people were walking. You don't have to be just a performance athlete or an extreme outdoorsman. You can still get the benefits of being outside. I mentioned we're also very focused on scalable, inspiring brand expressions. This is through traditional brand advertising, but also through content storytelling. So telling the story of our brand, telling the story of our products, but also really helping people connect with the outdoors, giving them tips, being a helpful guide. And so we've really shifted over the past few years, making sure that our owned channels, like our website, are not just transactional, but really making those emotional connections with consumers as well. Now we're really focused on how do we get that out in a scalable way through paid, earned, and owned media. Just to close it out, this is a current example we just launched this week. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We know this is a big topic for a lot of people. We see it in our own insights, and we obviously believe the outdoors can help be a restorative power related to our mental health and well-being. We've just recently partnered with a professor at UC Irvine who's researching the benefits of being outside. We also announced a partnership with Mental Health America just this week, helping them develop programming connecting the outside to mental health and well-being. And then in our social platforms, we're going off the grid for the month and have replaced our Instagram feed with these tiles and some also helpful hints on encouraging people to also spend time outside. So it's just a way of how our purpose comes through in the partnerships we're developing, but also the content and stories we're telling as well. So it's a little bit about our brand. I'll have Bobby Fitzgerald come up for the Q&A.
That was awesome. We got Bobby here joining from Amperity, so thank you. And I will say, I love the mental health aspect. Now that the weather is starting to turn here in the Northeast, I'm a Jersey guy, not as cold as Boston, but I've completely shifted off as the Zoom video meetings because I'm like, look, a little sunshine does wonders. I'm going to go work outside, take these calls on a walk, and I encourage everybody to do the same. So I love that. So thank you so much for sharing, and enjoy the rest of the conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just to echo that, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that mental health awareness was something that obviously jived well with the brand, but something that you guys were stepping into. So thank you. It's obviously top of mind for a lot of us here. So quickly, I'm Bobby Fitzgerald. I work at a company called Amperity. For those not familiar, shame on you. We're a customer data platform. We specialize in consolidating data across fragmented systems, disparate data silos. So I will prod you a little bit on how you're utilizing customer data today. But I actually want to start with something that has been front and center here for a lot of the brands today, which, by the way, I had no idea how old you all were. I just got to say, and I'm obviously speaking to the brands. But the strategic partnerships side. Just to name a few, Vans, Russell Athletic, Todd Snyder, obviously they run, across multiple sort of, facets of retail. And I'm curious, what goes into actually, sourcing those partners. I'm sure there's no shortage of partners that would lean in and love to work with L.L.Bean. So kind of, what goes into actually, choosing your retail partners and setting those relationships up?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and appreciated hearing the insights on that this morning too. But, it's something we take very, very seriously. I think it's also helpful just to define the scope and range of partnerships and how to think about it. And our world, we look at it on kind of a continuum for things that might be more cause marketing oriented in the charitable world to things that are obviously more commercially oriented. And so that can span nonprofit organizations, other brands where we might be doing co-marketing, other product brands where we're doing collabs, influencers, ambassadors, and we can talk a little bit later about our emerging wholesale strategy as well, but other retailers that we're connecting ourselves to. And we do not take it lightly, as I'm sure everyone else here responsible for your brand, in terms of who we're connecting ourselves to, and want to be very careful about that. So we look at it, we've actually developed a framework to assess any potential partnership. We look at it on an axis of kind of financial potential benefits, as well as brand, and the different potential partnerships will fall on different spots in that kind of X and Y axis, and so you need to know kind of what are you trying to achieve. Certainly, as I mentioned before, scale, reach. Maybe we're looking to achieve more credibility in a certain category or space. Always definitely looking for trying to get in front of new audiences as well. So we look at that really carefully, and then continuing to come back to the purposes. There needs to be that direct line to what we're about and who we are as a brand. I'd also say it's not something we do in isolation. Within marketing, we have a responsibility for pursuing and identifying those partnerships, but it's a big enough thing to attach our brand to that these are conversations we're having with the rest of our executive team, and a lot of conversations I have with Steve Smith, our CEO, and it's something we are very thoughtful about as we identify new partners.
And that's been consistent over the past 107, 108 years of L.L.Bean. It's been an integral, strategy for you. And I'm just curious, it sounds like you have a formula. Are these evergreen partners? Are they seasonal? Are they campaign-centric? Are you sharing data? Kind of what is the logistical setup of those partnerships?
Yeah, they can each be a little bit different. It was interesting to hear Tara this morning say that, they kind of start fresh with every single one. She was talking more specifically around collabs and how those are brought to market. But, I think each of ours are a little different. I think we have fewer that are kind of one-offs. We certainly look to establish longer relationships where we can really build on the momentum that we're establishing with the benefits of being connected to another brand or another organization. The case of the Strava one that we just launched and ran over the past couple of months, that is something I hope we come back to. I think there's a great opportunity for us to kind of own access to those more casual, active outdoor activities, leveraging their partner, but that was initially designed as more of a one-off. So even with our influencers and our ambassadors, our ambassadors would be deeper relationships of folks that we work with. That would be typically multi-year engagements, but our influencers might be shorter, but certainly less likely to be kind of a one-off campaign. We'd like to work with them on a little bit more of an extended basis.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So you sort of alluded to it, and it caught my attention because I'm talking to brands every day who are trying to really strengthen and tighten their strategy around direct-to-consumer. But for the first time in L.L.Bean's history, you are going wholesale. Can you talk about why that is and what you're doing there?
Yeah, it kind of feels like we're swimming upriver against everyone else coming the other way, and so certainly recognize we're going in the opposite direction. And it's something we've given a lot of thought to for a long time. It's not a decision we've taken lightly, and I think what it comes down to is our interest is really competing as a brand and not just as a retailer. So yeah, for the first 108 years of our history, the only place we could get L.L.Bean products were through our own channels. And I think if you have confidence in your brand, if you have confidence in your products, which we do, then you actually want to be where the consumer is, and that's not always going to be where we are. And so I think it's helpful. Certainly there's an opportunity to get in front of new customers and new audiences, also to expand our geographical reach, and really start to try to build on the brand a little bit and get it out there in front of more people. And we're also being thoughtful about the approach and the strategy. It's not something we are just going 0 to 60 on. So we started testing into it in the fall of 2020 and into 2021 with our first 4 partners who are Nordstrom, Scheels, Zappos, and then for book packs, Staples. And you may hear the list of those retailers, and there's not necessarily a lot of similarity across them. And part of that was by design. I think we're having the opportunity to learn what it's like to work with a range of different sorts of retailers. They've all been outstanding, and I think we've been really pleased with the relationships to date. We're starting to test into more the independent specialty space, so the retailers who might have 1 or 2 shops, and doing that with more of a regional focus. So we're starting to do that in the Southeast as a way of trying to get into a newer, or bigger market for us than where we've known to be. So we're really excited to see where it takes us. I think, as I said, we will be thoughtful about it. We're also not going to be turning our backs on our D2C business. It's critically important to us. We have a lot of success there. We also believe in the success of our own retail stores. So, and we're aware of some of the pitfalls that can exist in wholesale, but are interested to see where it goes.
Just curious, what do you think some of those pitfalls are? I guess where are you cautious of potentially stubbing your toe?
Yeah, probably a lot of people here are more familiar with them than I am, but I think certainly just it's a different type of relationship. There's a lot of things to consider in terms of just the flow of product, also just competing in the same space, and we're developing strong relationships with the marketing departments of these other retailers, being very thoughtful about promotions, when they're on, when they're not on, how we're competing in the performance marketing channels, et cetera. So we're learning all that sort of stuff. And I think with a shorter list of partners today, that's much more contained and much easier for us to test into. But as you start to scale that, and especially in the independent specialty world, I'm sure we're going to be coming across things that we can't even predict. And so there's just a whole new dimension of how to operate. I think also, in terms organizationally, the resources that are needed, the product development process and timelines, all of that will be areas of learning.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. As a brand with such heritage, I need to be careful, not a heritage brand. With a brand with such heritage, I've been really impressed with how many firsts I've heard you talk about. And when you talk about the story, I think you started to allude to this and answer this question, but the story of L.L.Bean to me started with my L.L.Bean backpack in elementary school, and then it became the catalog. where I'd sit every fall and go through the fall catalog, thumb through it, and pick out my Christmas list. And then it was the Bean Boot around high school, college. That was like the coolest new thing. And so how do you craft a story that still appeals to me? I'm still, I've got my slippers. I'm going to get a new pair. I'm still a big fan. But also appeals to some of the millennials that maybe don't know what a catalog is.
Yeah, and I'll come back to the catalog piece too. We have a rich history there, but have certainly expanded beyond that. But your story is very similar to a lot of people that we talk to, and a lot of customers that we have. One of the things we benefit from is just an incredibly loyal customer base, and it's not something we take for granted. And I think, I mentioned and then you identified, we are evolving and moving forward in new and different ways. Always taking into consideration our existing customers, but very, very interested in bringing new people into the brand. And I think some of the things that allow us to do that are, one, remaining centered on our values, remaining centered on our purpose, and some of the things I described about the brand in terms of being approachable, really trying to get people to experience the getting outside without having to do that necessarily a super aggressive way, can be appealing to a very broad audience. And so we think that's appealing to new customers in addition to our existing customers. So those are some of the ways we're looking at it. One of the things we're learning too is there's so much power in the stories from our customers, and we're just blown over on a regular basis by the stories that we hear and capture. Your story about your book pack, and the number, if I had $1 for every time I talk to someone who I bump into and they hear I work at Beans, usually the first story is about their book pack, because that's when, especially if you grew up in New England, probably maybe your first connection to the brand as a kid. And there's just so much power in the stories about our products, about experiences with our brand, also the experiences that our customers have in the outdoors. And so it's something we're looking to tap into a little bit more. And actually, back to school is coming up around the corner. For us, book packs becomes a big part of our business in that time. And not to give away too much, but as we're developing that campaign right now, we're really trying to harness those customer stories and think that that's something we can do going forward. And it's attractive to our existing customers, but more importantly, we think it can be contagious to new customers as well. I mean, we are trying to drive consideration for our brand. We have decent brand awareness. We want to convert as much of that into people considering us and purchasing from us. And we know the things that drive that are affinity and love for a brand. And so, again, we think it can be contagious through those stories. And doesn't have to be just customers. We're actually, want to focus on real people stories. You can't be more authentic than having a customer or an employee. We also have a great group of outdoor discovery program instructors who work for us, who teach people how to kayak and fly fish, and there's just so much, rich content that's in those groups that we can really, I think, harness.
Yeah, I think we've all learned a lot over the past 2 years, but I think we all have that sigh of relief when you say back to school. So thank goodness. I'm actually going to steal from New Balance this morning, talking about calculated risk excellence. I really liked that, and I'm going to dumb it down a little bit for you, because you're balancing a lot. You're balancing, brand marketing, your storytelling, your strategic partners, but also that personalization at scale, and talking about the end consumer, the bottom of the funnel that Jim, was talking about earlier. How do you know it's working? How do you actually justify some of those leaps of faith that you make?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we are looking to lean into and invest up in brand marketing, and we are super comfortable in performance and product marketing. Coming back to the catalog, I mean, that's where our DNA is. And I left this part out of the story about LL when he sold the first 100 pair of boots, but he did that through a direct mail piece. He got his hands on the Maine hunting and fishing license list and mailed people a mailer, and that's how he got the orders. And so we were a direct marketer from day one. And as I said, it's in our DNA. We're very, I think, efficient and competent at direct response measurement. We were fairly early to the game in e-com. We launched our first website in 1996, and as digital marketing came on board, it was a natural transition for us to go from catalog marketing to digital marketing in a direct marketing sort of way. And so, again, I think we're really comfortable there. Brand media marketing, the measurement becomes a little bit different, and a part of it is, and this is kind of the calculated risk that I think Chris was talking about earlier today from New Balance, that, it's a little bit more of taking a leap of faith, and I think it comes back to having confidence in your brand, comes back to having confidence in your product, and it comes back to having great partners, but also incredible creative execution. And if you get those pieces right, then I think, it gives us more confidence to push harder in that space. Measurement still becomes really important in terms of how do we know if it's working right. We have fairly sophisticated attribution modeling, which encompasses any of the brand media investments that we're making, but also recognizing that we need to be looking at other sorts of metrics beyond just revenue and ROI, and looking at things like site traffic and reach and impressions within our social platforms as well. So, I think we have the confidence to do it and want to push a little bit harder there.
Yeah, so coming full circle on the storytelling and kind of operating with purpose, as you scale, you've got all these different levers that you can pull as the CMO. And so how do you maintain that common thread? How do you make sure that there's alignment across all those different disparate groups kind of driving towards the same, in the same direction, I should say?
Yeah, I give our CEO, Steve Smith, a lot of credit, who came in about 6 years ago and brought into the company much more structure around what we call our commercial planning process. And I'm sure it's something that all of you work with within your own brands and organizations, but it's the way that we are aligning on our go-to-market strategies. And it's specifically designed to align merchandising, inventory, marketing, and operations. We have structured milestones around it, and it's starts with 12 to 18 months looking at upfront planning and saying, what are we going to be, strategically, what are we focused on for the season we may be planning? And then we start to get into more of the execution phase within the kind of the 12-month window. And where it starts to get handed off to marketing is in the product priorities that are coming forward. And so we work very closely with our merchandising partners on identifying and kind of getting that list narrowed down. And then we're layering onto that also our brand priorities as well. And, I think the commercial planning process is especially good at the product piece. I think we've gotten much better in the past couple of years of layering on the brand piece as well to make sure that there's alignment. So how does it come together in terms of a seasonal campaign plan? And so it's a lot of alignment. Organizationally, I think one of the things that works for us is the content team within my group is responsible for both product and brand marketing. So they're looking at how those things fit together. They're obviously doing that in partnership with a lot of different sorts of groups. And the other thing we really strive for, and it's part of our culture that Steve's helped create, is collaboration, but also transparency. And I think it's something we've really pushed for with our marketing team to make sure that we are transparent. And we are connecting as best we can with our partners across the company. I've used the example of the partnerships before. Those aren't done in isolation, and that would be true too in terms of the development of our seasonal campaign. There's still plenty of room to operate as marketers. I think it's just making sure we're doing it with the right level of connections and alignment.
So I'm being asked to wrap it up. So one quick question, and this is a story that actually you don't know. So you brought up culture, and 5 years ago, before Amperity had a product, our founders reached out to the folks at L.L.Bean and said, hey, can we talk to you about customer data? Can we ask you some questions? Can you kind of pull the kimono back on some of the challenges that you're facing? And they said, absolutely. Come into our headquarters, come on in. We're going to teach you everything that we know. And if you've ever called L.L.Bean customer service, you know that the experience is fantastic. So clearly there's something about the culture that's really unique. Can you speak a little bit more to how you've developed, how you maintain that culture as you started to really scale up the operation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, culture is a huge thing to always be working on. And I think it's the thing I've been at the company 17 years, the thing that attracted me to it and has remained true through all of it is just how good the people are. And we've got really smart people, people who have similar interests and enjoy the outdoors. And so that becomes a natural point of connection. The purpose kind of transcends throughout. And then, having a leader, as I mentioned, like Steve Smith, really driving home key things like collaboration, transparency, respect, and standing behind that. And it's great to see it come to life.
Well, Nick, the Chief Marketing Officer at L.L.Bean, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great.